Mishkan, the tabernacle in the wilderness, 12 loaves of bread were baked weekly and placed on a special gold-covered table that was in the sanctuary. The loaves of bread were replaced every Friday, so there was fresh bread placed before Hashem just in time for every Shabbat. The week-old bread was removed and given to the Kohanim, the priests, to eat in a special holy place. This week-old bread was said to have remained as fresh and warm as the day it was baked. There were also beautiful tapestry-woven draperies that were hanging in the Mishkan. They were dyed with rich, beautiful colors that were derived from the production of certain herbs. There were 11 categories of melachot, or work, that was required to make this miraculous bread and the special dyes. And even though this bread was required in the Mishkan, the place where Israel meets with Hashem, we had been instructed by Moshe that all of this work, this melachah, was to cease on Shabbat. So all of these activities are prohibited on Shabbat. But before I review the first melachah that goes into baking bread and making the dyes, realize that as you go on this journey through the 39 Shabbat prohibitions, you will have questions. This is a brief summary of the 39 Melachot for educational purposes, so you can know more about your Judaism. But there are many more details and many questions that you may have just based on your habits and how you do things in your own home and in your own life. So as you grow on your journey and add to your spiritual experience of Shabbat, you will want to partner with a rabbi. In selecting a rabbi, you will want to make sure that you select one who is well versed in all areas of Judaism. So he should be able to tell you who his teacher is, who his teacher's teacher is, etc. You should be able to trace back this student-teacher relationship all the way to Har Sinai, to Mount Sinai and Moshe. Now, the first step in making the bread is really the first step in growing any plants, whether it's wheat, herbs, or anything. The name of this melachah is Choresh, or in English it would be plowing. But it's more than just what we may think of as plowing. It's any activity that goes into preparing the soil or the ground for planting. The area would have to be cleared of any rocks, branches, or leaves. Then the soil would be loosened. Sometimes it would have to be softened with water and then mixing fertilizer in. So how does this apply to us today? If you love gardening and have flower beds, one obvious thing would be to avoid doing any preparations of the soil on Shabbat. That would include raking it or leveling out the surface of the beds, mixing in water, fertilizing the soil. This would also apply to preparing the soil for a potted plant, or even making a hole for a seed or a plant, even if no planting is done. There are some less obvious applications. If there's uneven dirt in the yard where you want to enjoy the weather outside on Shabbat, it would be forbidden on Shabbat to level out the dirt. Even though you are not doing this in order to prepare the soil, it still would be a prohibition on Shabbat. So even if you don't intend to be plowing, you could still violate this prohibition if your actions will have the same result as plowing. Again, like dragging the heavy outdoor furniture through the yard when it will inevitably dig up the earth, is the same action, the same result as plowing. Also, something that would be less obvious is walking through soft dirt in your yard while wearing high-heeled shoes. With every step, the heel digs in and then kicks up dirt. So the result is really the same as plowing. Now, our sages had so much wisdom and knowledge about human behavior and tendencies that there are some activities that were prohibited on Shabbat because we would invariably violate a Shabbat prohibition. One example that falls in this category of Choresh is playing marbles in the dirt. Playing marbles on Shabbat is not so problematic, but playing marbles in the dirt is what would be prohibited on Shabbat, because what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to try and level out the dirt, make sure there are no bumps and no dips. Even though these may be new concepts, they are very logical, and most of these prohibitions are easier to follow once you know what they are. Of course, if you love gardening and this is how you like to spend your free time on Shabbat, that could be a little bit difficult to get used to the idea, and it may seem a little restrictive at first, but truly it is freedom from the mundane weekday activities. So continue on your journey of learning, and may every Shabbat be more spiritually elevating than the last. Thank you for joining us, and continue to keep your eyes on the Torch website for future lessons.